This does look like an all-hands-on-deck storm.
Expect everything from snow, ice pellets, maybe even freezing rain. How the city is gearing up for the weather. Plus, by now you may have seen this video. Well, now police want to speak with the woman who threw that chair off a downtown condo balcony. And
the entire Gore Estate area is very unique in the Greater Toronto area. I don't think you can see many areas like this.
deciding the fate of a piece of housing history. Why some are fighting to keep this Brampton neighborhood the way it is. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. The snow hasn't started falling yet, but we're already hearing of some planned closures for tomorrow with another major winter storm on the way. Colette will be here in a moment to tell us what we can expect. For now, though, let's go to Adrian Chung, who joins us live with what we can expect in terms of storm preparations and closures. He joins us live from Queen and Spadina. Adrian, I can't help but thinking how much different that is going to look this time tomorrow.
Absolutely, Mike. The snow is really expected to roll in tomorrow, and it's expected to be a long one through the day. And we may not actually see the worst of it in the morning, but of course, parents at the moment want to know, will schools be open and will school buses run? The time that you need to know is 6 a.m. That is when most boards will make that decision. And the TDSB says that even if school buses do end up being canceled, it will work to keep schools open to give parents some options as well. As for the older kids, we do have some details. Centennial College, those campuses will be closed. Seneca and Humber will decide in the morning. And that will also be the same case for all three major universities. Mike?
Well, Adrian, no need for the snowplows to be out right now, but the city's already bracing for the storm. What is it doing in terms of preparations?
That's right, no plows yet, of course, but there are some salting trucks that are already out. And we had a chance to speak to the city manager for road operations, and he's calling this an all-hands-on-deck kind of situation. 200 salting trucks, 600 plows ready to deploy. And of course, so many of us will remember just digging out of that snowstorm about 2 weeks ago. That was when about 25 centimeters fell in about 24 hours. And certainly the city and transit faced some criticism about how the weather really overwhelmed the system. And in response, Metrolink says that more staff will be brought in tomorrow. They will be checking that infrastructure constantly. And the city says that they're also ready to deploy overnight if need be. But while all that infrastructure is getting ready all around us, every Torontonian has some responsibility too. Have a listen.
It is the responsibility of the property owner to maintain that sidewalk and keep it clear of snow and ice. So please be mindful of your neighbors and the people that walk through your neighborhood. Get out there and clear that ice for them, clear that snow. It would only make everybody's life a little more easier to maintain.
Now, just checking Pearson Airport a few moments ago, no real cancellations or delays at the moment. Of course, no snow, but always a good idea to check those flights early in the morning, because once that storm rolls in, the situation could change very quickly. Mike, I'll throw it back to you.
Good advice. Thanks, Adrian. Let's go straight to meteorologist Colette Kennedy. You are watching what is coming in tomorrow. It's just going to be a mess.
Yes, Mike, this is just looking like an awful storm with all different types of precipitation, messy roadways. One thing consistent, the winds are going to be strong from the east to northeast and very gusty through the day. We have the freezing rain warning for southwestern Ontario, and then for the GTA, and you can see much of southern Ontario, it's the winter storm warning. Oxford, Brantton, here on Perth, you're actually in both. There's overlap there. Moving in tonight towards southwestern Ontario, snow then becoming more of an ice pellet situation before it changes to rain into tomorrow. But you'll look at the timeline here. Early tomorrow morning for the commute starts as flurries, then light snow, then periods of heavy snow into the city as this moves through into the afternoon, likely changing over to some ice pellets for us. And then we could even see a bit of freezing rain in the city or some rainfall as the temperature comes up into the evening hours. Then it changes tomorrow night back into some snow before this all kind of tapers off and moves out Wednesday morning, leaving just flurries behind. So having a look at our outlook for tonight, -8. Early tomorrow morning it starts, going through the day. Again, mostly snow, then getting into ice pellets. We'll look at the accumulations, how many centimeters we'll be getting with this, also what those winds look like a little bit later in the show, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Well, besides the weather, a lot of people talking about this video tonight. It shows a woman hurling a chair off a balcony at a downtown condo. Now, investigators believe they know when and where this happened, a clearly dangerous act that has police now trying to track that woman down. Chris Glover has more.
The video of a woman tossing a patio chair off the balcony of a Toronto high-rise takes your breath away. People are stunned as they see it for the first time.
It's ridiculous. Why risk people's lives for a moment of just, I don't know, internet fame, essentially?
Below that balcony, the Gardiner Expressway and lots of foot traffic.
That's a bit of an eye-opener. I think there's levels, then that's definitely way over the line.
Police think it was 2 chairs found crumpled in a heap at the base of the building.
It's crazy. I don't know what is going on in people's head.
Police think it happened Saturday morning at Maple Leaf Square condos.
Seems lower. Yeah, it's lower. It's lower, yeah.
Glenn DeMel has lived on the 47th floor for a year and a half.
Pretty disturbed by it, to be completely honest. You know, it's extremely dangerous and also very selfish of that person to do that. It makes me kind of lose faith in humanity.
Sadly, it's not the first time. Last year in Vancouver, a man in his 50s was arrested for tossing furniture from his 19th floor apartment. And the year before that, an Ontario man in his 30s was charged with mischief after allegedly throwing cinder blocks from a highway overpass.
Public outrage is extremely high. I'm getting calls every other minute on this.
Tons of calls into Toronto police on this one, but no one has the woman's identity.
What their intent was still remains to be determined. We know at least there was one other person because somebody was holding the camera.
Since no one seems to know who the woman is, there's speculation from some residents she's a short-term renter, perhaps Airbnb.
That's, again, an ongoing concern in this building, is that I noticed that there are a lot of faces that I haven't seen before.
I touched base with the property management company that oversees the building to see if there's anything that they could do to prevent this from happening in the future, but they said they're not commenting on the case. Now, as for those 2 previous incidents, both of those men were charged with mischief, and that is what police think this woman could be charged with if she's caught. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario's first ever cooperative housing development could be under threat. The not-for-profit neighborhood was built in the 1950s in a rural part of Brampton. Well, now there's an effort to protect those historic homes from development.
The character of the place would be very different with a lot of houses. You can kind of live everywhere in Brampton with houses side by side. I'm not sure why we would like to dismantle something that's so different with this character.
The City of Brampton might allow some big changes to the area. The residents have applied to make their properties smaller, which would allow private developers to move in and build more homes.
We want to preserve the personality, the character, the history, but at the same time, if there are opportunities to possibly sever, we can definitely take a look into that.
A consultant has reviewed the situation and is advising smaller lots without opening the door for a new subdivision. Brampton City Council is expected to make a decision on the properties later this spring. Back here in Toronto, your next visit to one of the city's Green Pea parking lots is going to cost you more. Prices jumped today between 25 and 50 cents per half hour. Keep in mind that's Green Pea lots only. Residential parking and on-street parking rates are set to remain at the same price until next year. The latest touring production from Cirque du Soleil will be calling Ontario Place home for about 8 weeks this fall. The Ontario government claims this is part of their efforts to help revitalize the waterfront park.
Cirque du Soleil wanted to partner with us, and we're very excited to have them, to have programming in 2019, the fall, and we're very excited.
Cirque du Soleil expects to put on between 80 and 90 shows, performances of Alegria. Now, previous touring productions had set up at Ontario Place in the past, but more recent shows have raised the tent in the Portlands area. The Ontario government says it's looking for other potential partners to help make Ontario Place a year-round tourist destination. Well, the OPP says it has broken up a human trafficking operation that forced 43 Mexican migrants to work for very little pay. Details on how police and government agencies work together to conduct raids and help the victims after the break. Welcome back. The OPP says it has broken up a human trafficking ring, rescuing dozens of people from what's being called modern-day slavery, some facing horrible living conditions and pay as low as $50 a month. As Farah Morali shows us, the victims came here to work with the promise of work visas and permanent residence status.
Garbage bags on the windows and cardboard on the floor. A snapshot of the living conditions endured by victims of what police call a human trafficking labor ring.
It is inconceivable that this was taking place in our community.
Today, police announced a team raided 6 homes and 6 vehicles in Ontario, including this house in Barrie. In all, 43 Mexicans were freed.
Upon arrival at the Victims Assistance Center, these individuals were offered a hot shower, food, fresh clothing, and were given a medical assessment.
Police believe the traffickers ran a cleaning company and housed the workers in Barrie and Wasaga Beach. Some worked in those communities, others in Collingwood, Innisfil, Oro-Medonte, and even as far as Cornwall. Police believe the victims paid large sums of money to come to Canada, were coached on what to say to border officials, and promised work visas.
The traffickers controlled their pay. After paying the various fees, workers would be left with minimal compensation, sometimes less than $50 a month.
So it was a very difficult day for many. There were tears of joy that they were rescued. There were others who were not necessarily crying, but were on the verge because they simply were afraid.
Police say the men are now staying at a hotel in Barrie and were given jobs. They were also granted a temporary permit to stay for 6 months.
We don't need to talk about this as a case of one bad employer or a trafficker or a smuggler. We have to understand this is a structural issue.
This advocate for migrant workers says this type of abuse happens because low-wage workers aren't given long-term status in Canada.
Workers must have power. And for the workers to have power, the Ministry of Labour needs to step in and immigration law needs to change.
Despite today's announcement, no official charges have actually been laid in this case. The OPP and Barrie police say they have identified 2 persons of interest, but say they're still looking into their background and trying to figure out just how long this operation was running for. They did say they anticipate criminal charges will be laid at a later date. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
2 GTA police officers are facing impaired driving charges tonight, and one of them is the head of the Peel Regional Police Association. Peel Police confirming Adrian Woolley is a member of their service and heads the police union there. Woolley was stopped Saturday night on the QEW in Burlington. He's been charged with impaired driving and stunt driving. And the other officer, Constable Tina Teeter, is a veteran with York Regional Police. She was charged Sunday afternoon on Highway 400. And raids in Toronto and Montreal today have broken up what's being called an international money laundering network. 12 people were rounded up in the Montreal area, a number of arrests also taking place here in Toronto. It was all part of an RCMP investigation. Investigators were targeting individuals collecting money from criminal organizations and laundering the funds. We have a story now about a teenage girl who is defying doctors' predictions that she'd ever walk again. Madison Arsenault's life was forever changed when she went running in a Windsor City park with her gym class and somehow got impaled by a sawed-off golf club. That left her partially paralyzed, but as Jason Vio tells us, the community is coming together for her in a big way.
You'll get close to the railing.
For 17-year-old Madison Arsenault, taking these few steps is a big accomplishment.
We were told she was never going to walk again, so I mean, the stairs is huge, right?
Arsenault is still partially paralyzed. Her entire left side is numb, and she has vision loss in the left side of both of her eyes.
I've been getting more headaches. They're getting worse and just different, and nobody knows why. It was one of the worst pains I've ever felt.
These intense therapy sessions help her recover from what happened in the summer of 2016. She was jogging near a city soccer field when workers were painting lines. They were using low-lying string attached to sawed-off golf clubs. She tripped and fell. Her head became impaled on one of those golf clubs, leaving her severely injured and not expected to survive.
When I think about the way life was supposed to be and what I wanted for my daughter, that's what gets me. When I see her struggle or her in pain, that gets me. But she's here. She wasn't supposed to be, but she is.
Jim Scott, a local philanthropist, heard about what happened to Arsenault and called everyone he knew for help. Knowing that the journey to recovery was going to be a tough one, they focused on making her home accessible. More than 70 people came together and donated their time, money, or supplies to retrofit the home.
She's living her life, and she still wants to continue to be a normal student.
Especially someone who had such a horrific experience. When you can make that feeling go away a little bit and put a smile on their face, I think that's what we really try to emphasize around here.
They had trouble finding someone to do the demolition, so this Holy Names high school football team made it happen.
These are all kitchen plans and stuff.
Inside, Arsenault and her team of support workers helped design just about everything from top to bottom.
This is like a pull-down shelf. It's one-handed use, so I can reach everything.
She has a passion for baking, so a great deal of attention was put into this kitchen.
I think it'll make everything a lot less stressful and easier, more accessible.
Her old house was small and cramped, her second-floor bedroom inaccessible, so she was left to sleep in the living room.
It's really exciting. I just can't wait for it to be finished.
Madison and her family are very grateful to all who helped. These small brass hands will serve as symbols of thanks, each with a name. A tribute to each person who had a hand in this project, all mounted to a wall inside the home that will be there forever. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
Nice story. Well, you can see there the CN Tower lit up OVO gold tonight in honor of Drake. In interviews after winning his Grammy last night for Best Rap Song, he said he wanted the CN Tower turned gold and chrome. Mayor Tory honoring his wish tonight. Good night to see this as well. Our cameras might not be able to see the CN Tower this time tomorrow because of the snow that's on its way. Colette will have the details after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
New Raptor Marc Gasol making his home debut as Toronto hosts Brooklyn. The crowd giving him a standing ovation as he entered the game tonight. Let's jump to the fourth. Quick spin move, and Gasol scores from in close here. Now, shortly after that, watch this no-look feed to Patrick McCaw, who slams it home with two hands. Toronto behind with less than 40 seconds left. Danny Green ties things up with a great three-pointer. And then with time winding down in regulation, it's all up to Kawhi Leonard. Gets the pass, scores off the window with 4.2 seconds remaining. Brooklyn would miss a chance to win it right at the very end. So Toronto takes this 127-125. And Jeremy Lin could be joining the Raptors this week. His agents are confirming the move. He just has to be bought out by the Atlanta Hawks. Toronto will be his 8th NBA franchise, and the move comes as the Raptors' point guard Fred VanVleet is expected to miss at least 3 weeks with a partial ligament injury to his left thumb. Carla Kennedy's back with her extended forecast and got some details of just how much snow we can expect tomorrow.
Yes, and we are looking at significant amounts, and between the snow and then the ice pellets, and then you factor some winds in there too. So we could have some concerns, especially with the areas that will be seeing the freezing rain. We were showing you the warnings there at the top of the show where we could have power lines down and limbs down from trees and all kinds of things to be watching. So it's moving in tonight as snow, then changing over for southwestern Ontario, but tomorrow morning's commute is going to be snowy. It'll be light at first and then periods of snow becoming much heavier through the day, even into the afternoon hours. Still snow and then ice pellets, and some areas seeing freezing rain, especially a little further south, maybe right around Hamilton. You're kind of on the border, and freezing rain then changing to rainfall around towards St. Catharines and changes to rain for southwestern Ontario. But late tomorrow afternoon could see a few hours of ice pellets for the city, and then a bit of freezing rain or rain showers as the temperature comes up into the evening hours. And then as it starts to fall Tuesday night into Wednesday, it turns back into what will be lighter snow. Then some scattered flurries still possible through the day on Wednesday, but most of this starts early tomorrow morning for the city and goes on towards Wednesday morning. In terms of the accumulation potential, we're looking at, that risk of 20 to 25 centimeters between seeing some of that ice and that snowfall for the city. Lesser amounts back towards southwestern Ontario, and the winds very strong from the east to northeast. Some of these gusts through the day tomorrow may be up there towards 80 or even over 80 kilometers an hour at times. And even as we go into Wednesday morning, I do want to point out we're still going to be seeing very strong winds, and through the day Wednesday, it's going to be a blustery day as well. Overnight tonight, then, snow to ice pellets to freezing rain for southwestern Ontario through the overnight, -3 to -5. Freezing rain to rain by afternoon. As look at these temperatures coming up there, 5-6 degrees. Now, for the GTA, it's light snow by early morning. Those winds not too strong, but getting stronger overnight. And then tomorrow, they really will be ramping up. Snow to ice pellets with that freezing rain risk, even for the city. And we're looking at temperatures a range from -2 to 2 degrees. And that's why we get that mix in precipitation. Once we do get through Tuesday, still breezy on Wednesday and some scattered flurries. Thursday will be our quiet day, and then it looks lighter, but we do have another system coming towards the end of the week, and we'll be seeing more snow out of that one, Mike. So all kinds of things going on this week, but tomorrow's really the big day.
We have got to get through the next 36 hours. I'm going to be shoveling a lot tomorrow, that's for sure. Thanks a lot,
That's
Colette.
right. You're welcome.
We want to take a moment tonight to remember Joe Schlesinger, the veteran CBC correspondent, has died. He's covered some of the world's most significant news events of the 20th and 21st centuries.
No one here seems eager to die in the last moments of this war.
Now the war is over, but the refugee problem is not.
CBC News, Dhaka.
Peshawar, Pakistan.
Joe Schlesinger, CBC News, Prague.
Schlesinger was born into a Jewish family in Austria. His parents sent him and his brother to Britain during the rise of Nazi Germany. When the Second World War was over, he learned his parents had been killed in the Holocaust. He eventually made his way to Canada as a refugee. Schlesinger began a journalism career and joined the CBC in 1966. And he actually retired in 1994, but continued to contribute to the CBC over the next 20 years. Certainly missed by a lot of people here today. Well, the Rolling Stones have long ties to Toronto, but when they return to Ontario later this year, they're not going to be playing in our city. The band announcing that they'll take to the stage at Burles Creek. That's about 130 kilometers northeast of Toronto, just north of Barrie, actually. The concert will take place on the Canada Day weekend. Organizers expect the show to draw 70,000 fans. Tickets will go on sale Friday. And the Stones certainly have a long musical history in Toronto, but are you familiar with our hip-hop legacy? There's an event at the Reference Library tomorrow night looking at classic Toronto hip-hop albums from the 90s, featuring Choclair and Socrates. The moderator of that event will be talking about it on Metro Morning tomorrow. That's around 8:20 on CBC Radio 1. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Please stay safe on the roads in the afternoon commute. Good night.